Hi, I'm Philippa and I'm the Managing Director of Buckinghamshire Business First, and I've been passionate about supporting the needs of the tourism and hospitality businesses in Buckinghamshire and the wider visitor economy since meeting a lady back in 2010 called Elizabeth Adlington, and she was the chief exec of this then newly built wonderful destination for visitors in Aylesbury. And she approached Buckinghamshire Business First and took the time to talk about the support that she felt she needed as a business in order to make this a success. And very soon afterwards, Visit Buckinghamshire came into our support family, and the rest is history, really. So I'm sat here today at the Aylesbury Waterside Theatre in the Ambassador Lounge, and we have a very special guest who we've invited to host our inaugural tourism summit. So, Simon, the pleasure of your company. And prior to today and prior to coming to host this summit, had you been to Buckinghamshire?
Oh, Philippa, I've got a terrible, terrible confession to make, which is that I've been through Buckinghamshire like millions of other people many, many times. And I've always thought, as I've been trundling through on Chiltern Railway between London and Birmingham, well, it's still very pleasant. I've must have been through the county dozens, if not hundreds of times. But it wasn't until I got your very kind invitation then I thought, OK, well, I've got to do some proper research on this. So I've been on 3.5 visits to Buckinghamshire specifically for this. And I cannot tell you what a fantastic time I have had and what discoveries I've made and how slightly sheepish I feel about the fact that I've been living in London for, well, since the early 17th century, I think. And I hadn't properly just thought, oh, well, there's Buckinghamshire. It's not very far away. It's easy to reach, and it's beautiful and interesting.
So I've lived in Buckinghamshire for several decades now, but I actually came here from Ireland when I was 17.
Right.
So I've always looked at it with the eyes of a visitor.
Yes.
And I'm always blown away about how it's not known.
Yes.
Is it? Birthplace of the Paralympics, fantastic scenery, but has the misfortune of being placed between London and Oxford, two huge names.
No, but I think it's actually to the great advantage of Buckinghamshire, particularly at the time we are in. Now, here we are. It's pretty much, when we're talking 2 years to the day since I noticed things were going really quite badly wrong in terms of international travel. Having noticed this, I should have stayed at home, but indeed I didn't. I went to Saudi Arabia, to Jordan, to Israel, to Egypt, to Yemen, whereupon I found halfway through March 2020 that things weren't going really according to plan, and I had to get out quick. So I did, and obviously everyone knows it's been extremely tough for international tourism since then. However, even though we've sort of come out the other side, there is still so much stress involved in international travel. I mean, I've had the great fortune to be able to go to Australia for its reopening 10 days ago. And that was a great pleasure. But, my goodness, you have to, because you can't obviously get to, well, you can, if you pay a ludicrous amount of money, get non-stop to Australia. I didn't, so I had to sort out the rules for going via Japan. Could I do that? What did I need in terms of testing before I went out? When I arrived, what forms did I have to fill in? And then coming back via Qatar, exactly the same thing. So what do I need for Qatar? What forms do I need for that? Fill in my passenger locator form. Have I got proof of vaccination? It is genuinely, Philippa, very, very gruelling. And it's a huge disincentive, I think. So, first of all, people will be discovering what's on their doorstep much more. They will be far more inclined to do it because if you're in London, I mean, you might be thinking, yeah, I'll go to Barcelona for the weekend, but actually, can I really be bothered with all the testing, all the paperwork, all the risk that I might test positive while in Spain and be stuck there for 10 days, that there's some strange variant and I get caught in a lockdown or on the red list or whatever? Or do I just book a lovely pub or hotel in Buckinghamshire and go and explore that, and it's going to take me about an hour? And furthermore, I know that I can, even as a Londoner with no car, which increasingly is the case, I'll be able to get around easily and enjoy what the county has to offer. So it's a very good time that Buckinghamshire Business First is putting on this event, because, well, frankly, there have never has tourism to Buckinghamshire been so ripe for success.
And normally what we think in Buckinghamshire is people get on the train at London and head through to Bicester Village, which is the big attraction.
Yes.
And I think they just admire the landscape as they go through without realising just how much is here.
Yeah, well, and also bear in mind that Bicester Village isn't anymore a big attraction. It was certainly for a lot of people visiting from Asia. There are none now. The UK has done an extraordinary job at dissuading people from travelling to the UK, and that raises its own opportunities, but also there's some drawbacks from that. So if the government had set out to say we want to destroy inbound tourism, they could hardly have done a better job than what they have done. And it is not even going to recover to, I mean, they're talking about maybe getting back to maybe 2/3 of 2019 levels by the end of the year. I very, very much hope I'm wrong, but I can't see them getting anywhere near this. A little known development last October was to say to 300 million people in the European Union, we don't want you here. That was because they brought in the rule that you've got to have a passport, not an identity card, even though these days identity cards are just as secure as passports. It was a Brexit promise which is being carried out, and therefore 300 million people are being told, yeah, well, you can go to the post office, spend €100, get a passport, or you can go to one of the, I think, 37 countries that you can go to with your ID card. So the UK has uniquely, I think, caused itself huge problems with inbound tourism. Now, that isn't going to affect Buckinghamshire, especially because, with the greatest of respect, it's not Stratford-on-Avon, it's not Oxford, it's not Edinburgh, it's not Chester. Inbound tourism wasn't huge, but what will happen is that all the places that are dependent on inbound tourism, like those I've just mentioned, are now going to be thinking, oh, crikey, we've got to go after the domestic market. And so it's not a question of Stratford-on-Avon thinking, okay, well, yeah, we'll bring everybody back, because they're not coming back, I'm afraid, not for many years. Therefore, they are going to be going after the same market as Buckinghamshire, and I think that is in what is generally a very positive picture for Buckinghamshire. I think that is certainly a drawback, and my expectation is that of the many impediments to travel that the government has chosen by its implementation of the democratic vote to leave the European Union, the ID card one will be one of the first to go. They will suddenly discover, oh, yes, well, these things are secure after all, we've just noticed, and so that will happen. But it's going to be very destructive and very difficult for those inbound tourism-dependent places. I mean, Tower of London, Westminster Abbey, I think 90% dependent on inbound international travel. They are devastated.
There's certainly with London right on our doorstep, there's that convenience, and I don't know how many Londoners realise that we've got 2 underground stops here in Buckinghamshire. We're 23 minutes to the middle of the Chilterns to High Wycombe. And it's almost like the best kept secret, isn't it? There's such proximity to
it's a
all
secret
of this.
You really don't want to keep. Yes, I mean, I think Londoners kind of look what Zone 9, and they think it's probably in the neighbourhood of Pluto or something, and yet it is very easy to access when you get to Amersham, particularly. I mean, you get to a place with a beautiful old town in the middle of rolling countryside. It's a joy. In terms of access, it is hugely regrettable that HS2 is carving its way through the county, as you will know, but without a stop here. And again, I think probably 10 or 20 years down the line, they'll actually say, oh, okay, so we could be, 12 minutes from the centre of London, and we can just put in this station, and then suddenly everybody will be much more pro HS2. But meanwhile, there's East West Rail. Now it's running many years behind schedule. I was actually looking at an article from 2016 about all the benefits it was going to bring. There was an interview with Martin Tett, indeed, talking about these great opportunities for trains coming from Nottingham to Milton Keynes to ultimately to across from High Wycombe to Bourne End, and how marvellous this will be. But we're not there yet, but that will be really important for opening up parts of Buckinghamshire which at the moment are not especially easy to reach, such as Winslow, which is going to be put on the map.
Yeah, I remember back in the early days when we got involved in tourism, I went to one of the local colleges and I asked them to draw me an image of what they thought about Buckinghamshire. What did Bucks represent for them? And I remember being struck by one image, and it was the spires of Oxford, and it was the London with all its wonderful big building, and in the middle they'd drawn these lungs, these green lungs, and that's what they were telling me that Buckinghamshire was, the lungs between London and Oxford, and it's stuck. And I think through COVID and now as we come out, there's hundreds of miles of walking. It's I think it's the nearest AONB to London. You can get here in 20 odd minutes. It's the best kept secret, isn't it?
Which is great. But also, I mean, I think the green credentials are genuinely impressive. So, starting with Chiltern Railway, who, for historic reasons, have to run noisy old diesels on the line, but no, they've got these new hybrid trains, which are now in service. Very impressive. There is properly a network of of paths, cycleways through the county, and yes, you can do the entire Chiltern Cycleway, or you can just, if you're in Aylesbury, just go for a little potter around, or indeed the excellent circuit of Buckingham, which I've made on foot, not by bike. Just across from here, where we're talking in the Waterside Theatre, there's car park with lots of EV charging points, and certainly going to places like Marlow, I've found businesses that have very solid ecological credentials, and it's so important not to get tied up with greenwash. I've seen plenty of it. I was in Belfast a couple of weeks ago, and this light blue plane turned up, and it was British Airways saying, "Look how green we are," and how marvellous aviation is. And I can't remember what their selling point was, but I mean, clearly aviation isn't sustainable. And I'll tell you what, for the purposes of the presentation, I'm going to ask people to make some sort of hard choices. So, for example, I'm sure all the excellent catering businesses here will sell me orange juice. I would say I'd be more impressed if you didn't sell me orange juice, because, you know, with the greatest respect, global warming hasn't yet reached the stage where these things are grown in the Chilterns. So therefore, just sell me some good local apple juice. Yeah. And I think that's the sort of move that is really going to make people think, oh, okay, these people are serious.
Yeah. And respected. I think visitors respect your credentials. We at Buckinghamshire Business First we're zero neutral in terms of and actually when you start on that journey, the little things that you can do that make that difference. So I think it's important. So what are the little gems that you've spotted so far? I know you've not been to Bucks much, but what are the little gems you've spotted?
Oh, my goodness me.
You've been doing your homework.
Yeah, and bear in mind that I've been doing all this research through the middle of winter. I genuinely, I've absolutely gone for it, and it's great. And experience is great and small is how I would characterise it. So really lovely smaller pleasures, such as the brilliant relief of David Bowie, just a few hundred yards from where we are. Great places to eat and drink. I was at Amersham Station, and I was exploring all around there, and I can't remember what travel disaster happened, but it meant that I had to find somewhere to sit down and work really quite seriously for an hour, and I went to a place called the Metro Lounge. And honestly, and in my presentation, I've got a picture of a more relaxed, better Wi-Fi, great food and drink, really kind of just a lovely place to sit and work. I personally would come back and just sit and work there because it would be a great pleasure. There's some really good museums. I haven't been, unfortunately, to Roald Dahl Museum due to the 0.5 trip, which was I had to abandon Darrow on the Hill because of one storm or other. But the beautiful museum in the Tower in Buckingham. And then, of course, you've got Waddesdon Manor, which again was on my 0.5, so I didn't get there. But Stowe, goodness me.
Yeah.
What an astonishing location, and that's the place of which I'm most embarrassed about how I had not properly appreciated what beauty there is. To be fair, Stowe isn't especially easy to reach without public transport. If you haven't got a car. But I'm sure there are ways of getting there. And then just things such as, in beautiful Beaconsfield, the fact that you've got the National Film and Television School is just, it reminds people of the creativity here. And what I'm hoping to bring to the party is ideas for creativity, delivering joy, creating memories, which is really what good tourism should be about. So when I was in Australia last week, there I was in beautiful St Kilda in Melbourne, beach suburb, and they don't just have a beach. They've got, actually embedded in the pavement, they've got pictures of how it looked when it became the first beach resort, and you can sit there looking at this beautiful view out across the bay and understand the history to this place. I love the idea of frames in which you just place a frame very shrewdly and people can just take their photos through it, and it's made for the Instagram age. I will be talking at some length about how to maximise the benefit of social media, how to make sure that you are properly connected. Either have fantastic, easily accessible Wi-Fi, or say we are not putting in Wi-Fi, talk to each other instead, and then just the whole range of social media and what good businesses in Buckinghamshire are doing to maximise that, and also examples from elsewhere.
Yeah. And getting good. I think we need to get better at telling our story. When I was listening to you about landing in Amersham, I say this because, again, I felt the obligation to experience some of these things when we started to support tourism. Yeah. And in Amersham, I think you've got one of the top 25 restaurants in the country. They're the Artichoke. Right. Across the road from it, you've got the Crown, where they filmed Four Weddings and a Funeral. Yep. And before you know it, you're just totally immersed in this in this county, Bridgerton was filmed here, West Wickham, that it's always filming, the big mausoleum. There's just so much to get immersed in and just lose yourself in.
Yeah, very much so. County. For businesses, first of all, I hope that I can provide some good thoughts, but also I think when you are providing these great experiences, delivering joy and creating memories and so on, you also need to be generous, because I think people remember when you are, and they will certainly remember when you are not. And so just think of the extras that you can provide, because they will be for example, in Fitzroy Gardens in Melbourne last week, I spotted that the cafe there just says picnic rug, just borrow one, free. There you are. Just something small but meaningful. And I will be mentioning a Scottish hotel where they were slightly less than generous as well. But people will respect you for your generosity. They will respect you for your green credentials. They will respect you for providing accessibility, and all of that is really, I think, essential for success in tourism. And it will arrive, but the better that businesses innovate and cooperate, the sooner it will be here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Simon, and thank you for coming to Bucks today.
My great pleasure, and thank you for inviting me, not least because I've now, through my research, discovered a place which I will be returning to many times.
Excellent. Thank you.